أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Amma ba'd, we continue from page 39, paying the zakat. The zakat payment time, zakat must be paid immediately when it is due if one is able to do so. It is not permissible to delay paying zakat until the due time unless there is a necessity, such as if one's wealth is in a distant country or it is inaccessible, etc. The evidence that it is obligatory to pay immediately is the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but pay the due thereof on the day of their harvest. And he's saying, interpretation of the meaning, and give zakah, where the command entails hastening to act immediately. When does the person have to pay zakat? He has to pay zakat as soon as it's due. So what are the two conditions again for zakat to become an obligation? Number one, the nisab. He has to meet the minimum amount. Number two, the hawl. Okay, the hawl, that it's been there for 1 year. This is the general rule. There's obviously the exception regarding the kharij min al-ard, that which is harvested from the earth, but this is the general rule. So if a person has the wealth, he has the minimum amount, which we said was approximately $670 based off silver. If he has that amount, minimum, for 1 whole year, once that year is up, and we're getting Hijri calendar, not Gregorian calendar. Gregorian calendar is longer. So a person needs to be careful. Let's say the first night of Ramadan, that's when his zakat is due. So the first night of Ramadan, the next year, he has to give his zakat. He can't delay. Some people think, okay, my zakat was due the first of Ramadan, but I'm going to hold it and I'm going to give in the last 10 nights. No. This is an obligation that you need to give at the time it's due. And so if your zakat was due the first of Ramadan, you have to pay it the first of Ramadan. Now you can't delay it. If it was due in Shawwal, then in Shawwal. In Muharram, then Muharram. Whenever your zakat is due. You can't say, I want to save it until Friday, I want to save it to this fundraising event. No. You have to give it the day that it was due. The only time that you're allowed to delay giving when your zakat is due is if you cannot give it. You cannot give it. For example, and you want to transfer to a charity, mathalan, but your account's not working. The internet is down. Okay, understandable. There's an issue with the bank takes a week to solve it. Understandable. Maybe you have cash, but it's, for example, with a person, and that person's traveling, you don't have access to it. As an example, now there's a reason why you don't have access to it. Some people, maybe they can't afford it. Maybe his zakat is due, and he has it, for example, in stock, but the country that he lives in, there's no place for him to give his stock in zakat. Like, for example, vegetables. That's an example. He has a vegetable shop, and his zakat is due, and he can give it in from his groceries that he sells at his shop, but there's no charity or there's no people for him to actually give it to that will accept it as any vegetables and goods. And so he needs to wait till he gets liquid. These are different scenarios. But the general rule, as soon as your zakat is due, you need to pay it on time. It says down the bottom, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and give us zakat wa atu zakat, where the command entails hastening to act immediately. This is a qa'idah, fiqhiyah, okay? This is a fiqh rule. The acts of worship, are they ala al-fawr or not? The acts of worship, do they have to be enacted immediately, yes or no? A very clear example of that. A person put his alarms, he tried to wake up for Fajr, but accidentally overslept Fajr. And he wakes up, for example, at 8:30 in the morning. The question here, does he need to get up and make wudu and pray straight away? Or can khalas, since he already is late for Fajr, he can snooze it until 12 o'clock? What's the answer? He has to pray straight away. Why? Because it's farz. On this rule, according to this, on the opinion that the ibadat tajibu ala al-fawr, that the acts of worship become an obligation straight away, then yes, he has to straight away. As soon as he wakes up, go and pray straight away. He can't say, khalas, I already missed it, I'll pray it later. The same question, for example, with Hajj. Let's say a person now, they have the money saved up, they can go to Hajj. The general rule, you have enough money, it becomes an obligation, you're physically able to go, you need to go. The only exception, again, if there's a reason why you can't go. If there's a reason why you can't go, then the obligation is removed, like any other obligation. But if you don't have a reason, then you need to go. If a person becomes Muslim, for example, a person becomes Muslim, you need 10 minutes before Maghreb. And he became Muslim, what does he need to do straight away? خلاص wudu and do what? Pray Asr. Because العبادات تجب على الفور. You're now Muslim, now you understand, now you know the rulings. Yalla, Bismillah, Salli. Okay? So the ibadat that are, it's time for the ibadah, you need to do it straight away when there's an obligation. Same thing with the haram. You need to stop it straight away. Ruling on paying zakat ahead of time. It is permissible to pay the zakat up to 2 years ahead of time as long as the nisab is complete at the time when the payment is made. This is also another rule. Okay, that you need to pay it when it becomes an obligation. If you give zakat and it's not an obligation yet, is it correct or not? This is a fiqh matter. Again, because the condition for something to become an obligation is that the reason, the sabab, the illah, the reason for it to become an obligation has to have started. It sounds a little bit hard, but with an easy, inshallah, وبالمثال يتضح البيان. يتضح البيان. With the example, the speech becomes clear, inshallah. The illah, the reason has to happen in order for the matter to become an obligation. Right now, is it time to pray Isha? Yes or no? No. So if we got up right now and prayed Isha in Jama'ah, and we read the whole of Surah Al-Baqarah, what happens?
It's counted as like a bond.
Is Isha counted? Isha is not counted. Why? Because it's not time for it. Simple, it's not time for it. What makes zakat an obligation? When you have the nisab and you have the hawl. You have the nisab and you have the hawl. If you have the nisab, then because of a hadith, okay, there are narrations where zakat is allowed to be given ahead of time. 1 year ahead of time, if there's a need. If there's a need, sometimes, for example, let's say, a very common example, right now it's happening in Palestine, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate their affairs. If a person now says they're in extreme need, and we want to donate our zakat even ahead of time. Of course, sadaqah is open, you give as much sadaqah as you want. But in terms of their zakat, can a person give for this year and for next year? Yes, you can. As long as you have the nisab, so that condition is met, you can give your zakat ahead of time. All you need to do is make sure that when the next year comes around, you don't owe more. Okay, so let's say now a person, his zakat is due. Let's say for this year, it's $1,000. So he has the minimum nisab. He says, you know what, I'm going to send $2,000. That's my zakat for this year and for next year. He needs to make sure that the next year when it comes, his zakat was actually $1,000 or less. If his zakat for the next year was, masalan, $3,000, so he has to pay the extra that he owes. Okay? Don't worry, most of you, alhamdulillah, Allah won't if you even have to pay zakat. I know, don't worry. Where to distribute the zakat? It is better to distribute the zakat amongst the people of the town. Pay attention to the wording. Wording is very important, even though it's in English. Okay, but when it's written in the fiqh language, it's important to understand fiqh terms. Better does not mean obligation. Better means, al-afdal means a recommended. It is better to distribute the zakat amongst the people of the town where the wealth is. If there is no one in need in that town, or if the wealth is in an isolated place with no people, then one should distribute the zakat in the nearest town to them. So a person, where should he begin? He should begin in the place that he's in. In the place that he's in. If alhamdulillah the need is covered, no one is in need now, then you get further away and further away and further away until all of it is distributed. And this is hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, to take from their wealthy zakat and to give it to their poor. To take from their wealthy zakat and to give it to their poor. And this helps with the social cohesion and it helps balance the socio-economic problems, and it removes the envy and the enmity and the hatred from the hearts of the poor, the jealousy towards the wealthy, and it helps overall with a better society, etc. Now it helps, all in all, it helps. If there is no one around, then you can share it around. Nowadays, because we have so many people that are living in different countries. Okay, this is not something that was common previously to this extent. And the ease in which wealth is sent also was not present in previous times. So nowadays, again, is a person allowed to send his wealth back to his home country or to his family back home? Yes, this is allowed, and will come with us regarding helping your family. Okay, but the asl, the principle, the default position is that your zakat is distributed where it is, where you are, in your city, then in the surrounding areas, then you can look elsewhere. Now that's the asl. When we speak about the family, just as a precursor, one thing that you can do is you can split up your zakat. You can give part of it here, and you can also look to give part of it overseas. And as we mentioned before, don't think that in Australia there's no need for poor people. There's no need for your zakat given because there's no poor people. There definitely are poor people that fit the poor according to the Islamic definition. Yes, generally speaking, you're not going to find someone that has nothing to eat, is dying of starvation in Australia. That's the general rule. Of course, you're not going to find that, generally speaking. But that's not the only criteria when it comes to being poor Islamically. Items that may and may not be used to pay zakat with. The zakat should be paid from the mid-range parts of one's wealth, not the best of quality items. For example, one is not obliged to pay with a fattened, pregnant, or the males from his cattle, or the best quality fruits unless he is content and pleased to do so. Furthermore, it's not permissible to pay one's zakat for good quality stock with the worst quality stock unless all of his stock are of low quality, or all of his cattle are sick, in which case it is permissible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and do not aim at that which is and do not aim at that which is bad to spend from it, though you would not accept it, except if you close your eyes and tolerate therein. And when you go to give sadaqah, don't give the worst that you have. As Allah describes, you wouldn't take it because it's so bad, you wouldn't take it unless your eyes were closed. Now, when a person goes to give sadaqah, your obligation is the average, the middle range. Don't give the lowest of the low, and don't have to give the best of the best. That which is average, give from. When you're talking about wealth, that doesn't exist. That middle range doesn't exist. But when you're talking about, for example, animals, livestock, let's say you got camels. You got the best of the best camels, and you got the worst of the worst. You give the average. Now, as for giving the all from the best quality or all from the low quality, that becomes an obligation, obviously, if all of your wealth is from the top quality. Let's say a person, for example, he's got all Ferraris. Okay, this is he's got a car yard and it's all Ferraris. And they're all, for example, mashallah, top notch. Obviously, that's what you're going to have to give from. And you're going to have to give from your Ferraris. You're not going to give from, or you can give the liquid, obviously. But you can't get like a 1994 Corolla and say, khalas, take that. I don't want that. No, if all your wealth is the best, then you have to give the best. And if a person, all he has is 1994 Corollas, then of course you can give from that, no issue, if that's all you had in your kaya. As for if a person wanted to give more from himself, so let's say you've got camels worth $10,000, camels worth $2,000. So you can give that mid-range, the camels worth $5,000, $6,000. If you from yourself wanted to give more, you want to give, for example, a $10,000 camel, then that's up to you. That way you're getting your reward for the zakat and the extra as sadaqah. Also, it was conveyed in the hadith, neither an old nor a deficient animal nor a male goat may be taken as zakat except if the zakat collector wishes to take it. Something again which is deficient, this is the lower quality, it's not allowed. A male goat may not be taken. Why not a male goat? Let's say he's a farmer. Why wouldn't you take the male goat? Why wouldn't you take the male goat? Who's the shepherd?
Milk.
Huh?
Doesn't produce milk.
The taste of the meat is not good.
Doesn't reproduce.
Explain. If I know you well and I understood your answer, you said the answer correctly, but your understanding is incorrect.
Why would if you give a male goat? If you reproduce, you have more shape.
Yeah.
So more to sell, more value.
So you get the female one.
Yeah.
So she can get pregnant.
Herself.
We still need the male one.
Or that's the main one.
You ever heard of a test? Who he has their dad or mom's called them a test? A few people, mashallah. So the taste in Fusha, the taste, that is the male goat, okay? The male goat. When it comes to sheep and goats, etc., all you need is one fahal, one stallion of a goat, tabarakallah, and he'll impregnate the whole flock. Okay? So there could be like 30, 40 females, and you just get that one male, and he knocks them all off, tabarakallah. Okay? This is, if you take his male one, what happens? Then he's stuck. Now he can't impregnate, although so it affects the owner of the wolf. Okay, it affects him. So this is part of why the male is not taken. Anyone heard? You guys know the ruling when a person's married. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with that. If a man is married to a woman and he divorces her 3 times, what's the only way that wife can come back to the husband? She has to get remarried to another person, and it has to be a proper marriage. Okay, it has to be a proper marriage, and then if they get divorced, again from their own souls, not something agreed upon, they themselves agree that they get divorced, and then she's allowed to, if she wants to, get back to him. Now, the one who sets that up, who agrees with a guy, listen, I divorced my wife 3 times, I'm stuck, I can't get back married to her, Allah khali, go marry my wife. Go marry my wife. Now, the Prophet called him, he takes some sta'ar. Okay, he's like a rented goat. Because, again, this is why I asked if there's any farmers. If a person has land and you've got, mashallah, all these female sheep, you call up the male sheep owner guy, Assalamu alaikum, how much for a day? And he says, for example, okay, $1,000, jazakallahu khairan. You bring that male guy, you pay him $1,000 and you let him run wild. Okay? This is like how the Prophet ﷺ described it, and it's obviously the meaning term. It's not honorable, it's not praiseworthy. This is something else on the side. The Messenger ﷺ also told Mu'adh, avoid, do not take the best property of the people's zakat. Obviously, if you the zakat collector, the one going and taking the zakat, if he takes the best of people's wealth, what happens? People are going to be upset. Zakat was not there to make the lives of the people hard. Yes, we want to look after the poor without doubt, but we don't do it at the expense of making the rich angry. Now we take, it's only 2.5%, and we take from the middle of their wealth. 2.5% generally speaking with zakat. Obviously there are high percentages also. This is part of what led to, sorry white people, this is part of what happened in America. Okay, when they freed the slaves, certain people who were considered, in our terms, millionaires, because of the slaves that they owned and the labor that they could have and the farmers that they could use for agriculture, etc., and they could use the labor of these slaves. When the ruling came that slaves are free, this caused them a big problem, because that's where their wealth was, that's where their labor was, that's where they were able to work that money. The fact that slavery became abolished, people who were millionaires, they lost their wealth. Okay, they lost their wealth, and or they had now had to pay for labor. Instead of them owning the slave, they don't have to pay him anything. Now they need to pay someone to come do the work. So what happened to their costs? They went through their roof. So what happened to a lot of their wealth? It diminished. And this is part of, not completely, but part of what led to the hatred between the whites against the blacks in America. So again, in Islam, there's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom where you're assisting and people are doing their part, but it's not leading to any bad taste in anyone's mouth or disdain or hatred towards the other. Some guidelines regarding the paying of zakat. The person who is paying zakat must seek out those who are entitled to his zakat, rather than making an annual habit of giving it to someone who is not entitled to it. As the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, there is no share in it for one who is independent of means or one who is strong and able to earn a living. If you give zakat to the wrong person and you had the ability to know and to research, then that's your fault. That's your fault, and you are now held responsible for it. Meaning, you have to pay your zakat again. That's your mistake. That's your mistake. Now you have to pay your zakat again. Again, sadaqah, no issue. Give sadaqah to whoever you want. But zakat specifically, you need to make sure you give it to the right person. Here, where the Prophet ﷺ says, ذِي مِرَّةٍ صَوِي, a person who is strong and able to go and earn. This is not talking about someone who is trying but not finding, or trying but does not have enough. Let's say, for example, and this happens in some countries, you have some individuals who are able to earn a living. They're able to earn a living, but they got so used to handouts. that day said, Mustafa, I'm not going to go and work, you can't give that person your zakat. The one who doesn't want to work because he's living off handouts. That person is not entitled to your zakat if he has the ability to work. Let's just say a person has a relative in Lebanon. He's got a male cousin in Lebanon, mashallah, strong, fit man, mentally fine, he's able to go and work. But he says, why should I go work when one phone call to my cousin in Australia and he'll send me, for example, $200, no problem. He says, my cousin, Assalamu alaikum, Allah khalik, it's a bit tough, can you send me money? He says, there's no issue, Jazakallah khairan, here, he's $200. If that person doesn't work and he's just relying on his cousin sending him money, do you want to send him sadaqah? No problem. Can I be from zakat? No. Why? Because he has the ability to go and earn. It's different to a person who is trying to look for work. Bro, wallah, I'm trying to look for work, I've applied for all these places, but no one's hiring. Or I'm working, but it's not enough to cover all of my payments, my rent, etc. And I'm trying my best, but I can't. I'm not spending my money on stupid things, I'm just doing it tough. That person can be given, even if he's fit and healthy. That's not an issue. He's in actual need. But the one who, on purpose, is sitting at home or being lazy or not looking for work, la, that person not to be given from zakat. The person who is paying zakat must make an effort in searching for whoever is most entitled and most in need of it. The more reasons for entitlement a person has, the more entitled they are to the zakat. For example, a relative who is poor or a portion of knowledge and so on. The person who is giving the zakat, he is allowed to give zakat whoever he wants. Any of the categories that fit zakat, he's allowed to give it to whoever he wants, however he wants. He wants to, for example, give it all to the fuqara, he can. He wants to give it all to the amilin alayha, he can. He wants to give it all to ibn sabil, he can. He can give it to whoever he wants. Or he can distribute it over them however he likes. He wants to give to the fuqara and the masakin and fi sabilillah, he's allowed. He wants to give to all of the 8 categories, he's allowed. He can do what he wants. But there are times and or individuals where it's better to give to a certain person. And let's say a person is a student of knowledge and he's poor. And he doesn't have the ability to continue his seeking of knowledge unless he's sponsored. Otherwise he's going to leave seeking knowledge and go back and work, for example, as a laborer, or he's going to work in his father's corner shop or whatever it may be, and he's going to leave seeking knowledge. He leaves seeking knowledge, we don't have a sheikh in the future. As an example, like that person, it's better to look after someone like that, to give sadaqah, to give your zakat to. Why? Because it's going to assist him in something which is extremely honorable, which is the pursuit of knowledge. Now, it's something very honorable to give. Or people like your relatives. This is also another group of people which are very good to give your zakat to. Your relatives. Why? Because if you have the ability to give, not only now are you helping a poor Muslim, but also you are helping your relatives. And the tie of kinship in Islam is something extremely important. Extremely important. The Silat al-Rahim is something which the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever keeps that tie of kinship, Allah Azza wa Jal keeps that tie with him. Whoever keeps that tie of kinship, Allah Azza wa Jal keeps that tie with him. And whoever cuts off that tie of kinship, Allah Azza wa Jal cuts off the tie with him. So a person needs to be very careful when it comes to keeping the ties of kinship and not breaking it off. And one of the ways to bring that closer is to assist them wherever they may be, whether they're in your city or they're overseas. As we mentioned, a person can split his wealth and distribute it, whether you have relatives overseas or you want to give here in Australia, do both. Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive. Do both. A person, mashallah, he has, for example, $1,000 in his zakat. Okay, let's say you give 500 here and 500 over there, or 300 here, 700 over there, whatever it may be, but distribute over both. Why not? Naam. That way, alhamdulillah, the good, all of it is being spread. Do you have to tell the person, that's your relative? Sometimes you don't want to tell them that it's zakat. You don't want to make them feel poor, etc. If you are sure that they are deserving of zakat, no, you don't need to tell them that it's zakat money. Okay, you can say, for example, it's a gift or whatever it is. You can say that, no issue. No, but you can't, you don't have to tell them it's zakat. if a person wants to give zakat, who are some family members that he can't give it to? You can't give it to people that you are directly responsible for, which are your father and up, your father, grandfather, etc. Your mother and up, your mother, grandfather, etc. Your son and down, your son, grandson, etc. Your daughter and down, your daughter, granddaughter, etc. And your wife. You can't give it to these people. Other people, like your brother, your sister, your uncle, your auntie, your cousin, you're allowed to give them zakat, no issue. It's not mentioned here, but if you want to pay zakat on behalf of someone else, let's say your dad, he has to pay zakat, and for whatever reason he doesn't pay zakat, and you say, I want to pay zakat on his behalf. I want to pay zakat on behalf of my dad. Are you allowed, yes or no?
Yes.
Who said yes? Tommy? You sure?
We'll find out, eh?
We'll find out. Are you allowed to give zakat on his behalf, yes or no?
No.
No? Who said no?
Did you say?
You're a reaver, I can't pick on you, bro.
Did you say?
Like when you're a reaver for like 3 years, then I can start picking on you. Alright guys, since you free yourself in the final round, let's go.
Did you say because the
I didn't
father-
say anything.
No, I was saying, but did you say because the father was able to give zakat, but you want to pay zakat on his
Yeah.
behalf? No, because if he's able to do so, then he can. But like, you pay your zakat because if you pay your zakat,
You have to pay your zakat either way, but can you pay on top of your zakat his zakat? Let's say he owes $1,000, he doesn't want to pay it, or he's not going to pay it for whatever reason. Or maybe he's willing to pay it, but you say, no, I want to pay on his behalf.
If he's willing.
So you throw in another 1,000, or for example, to cover his zakat.
If he's willing to, no. But if
You're just shooting in the dark. You're shooting in the dark, brother.
Yes.
I'm just
Yes.
I'm
I
trying to
know,
get general
yeah.
knowledge.
That's why I want to pick on you, bro. You're a reaver. Like, you haven't been a reaver for a year yet. Give me 3 years and then I'll start picking on you.
And like as the man, you can pay on behalf of your family, yeah, and your father can include in that. No.
The answer is yes, but with conditions. The answer is yes, but with conditions. The person is allowed to pay. A person is allowed to pay zakat on behalf of another person, but they need to know about it. They need to know about it. Why? Because paying zakat is an obligation, correct? Paying zakat is an obligation. And the only way that obligation gets lifted off your neck is if you know 100% someone done it, or it was completed on your behalf. Either you done it or someone done it on your behalf. You need to know that 100%. Okay? Let's say, for example, Khairuddin, you lend your son $1,000 as an example. Okay? That $1,000 now he owes you $1,000 no matter what. If I came and I secretly gave you $1,000 and I said that's from your son, does he know that I paid on your behalf? He doesn't know that I paid on your behalf. So to him, what happens to the obligation? For him, it's still wajib. He needs to make sure that my debt was paid. Otherwise, it remains as a debt. Otherwise, it remains as a debt. When it comes to zakat, zakat is an act of worship. And that act of worship is not completed until it is removed from the person's, they call it dhimma. It's not removed from the person's dhimma. How do you translate dhimma? Responsibility. It's not removed. That responsibility is not removed off that person until he is sure that either he paid it, or if someone paid it on his behalf, that he knows about it. So, someone might want to give zakat. Look, my dad's not that religious. I'm going to pay zakat so he doesn't get punished. It doesn't work like that. Okay? He needs to know about it. He needs to know. You need to tell him, I'm paying zakat on your behalf. Sadaqah, you can give sadaqah, no problem. Sadaqah, you can give, again, it's flexible, you don't have to tell them. You can donate on behalf of someone, no issue. But when it comes to zakat itself, because it's an obligation, the person needs to know about it. Say, we go to zakat al-fitr. Inshallah, it won't be too long because it's quite straightforward. Definition, zakat al-fitr is prescribed, the prescribed charity at the end of the month of Ramadan. It is called zakat al-fitr because it becomes obligatory when the end of fasting during Ramadan occurs. It is also called al-fitra. Ruling, zakat al-fitr is obligatory upon every Muslim who possesses on the day of Eid and its night 1 sa' of food that is additional to his and his family's need. Notice the difference. You don't need the nisab for the whole year. You don't need the hawl for the whole year. You don't need a massive amount. No. It is upon every Muslim that has a sa' of food, which we'll discuss, we've already discussed, no, we didn't discuss what a sa' is, who has a sa' of food more extra than what his needs are. Once you and your family's needs are met, you have a sa' extra, then khalas. Actually, we did describe what a sa' is. Well, what's a sa'? How many dead?
Four.
Amen. We'll get there inshallah, don't worry. If a person has a sa' above his needs, then it becomes obligatory upon every Muslim to give that zakat. The Muslim must pay on his own behalf and on behalf of his wife and whoever else he is obliged to spend on, such as his children. It is also recommended to pay on behalf of an unborn fetus. So if the person who is the head of the household, he needs to pay on behalf of himself and whoever he looks after. So for example, him, his wife, let's say he's got 4 kids, him, his wife and 4 kids. Him, his wife and 4 kids. The question, does the person need to pay on behalf of the unborn baby? That which is best is to do so. And alhamdulillah, in Australia, generally speaking, you're not going to get break because of it. The evidence that it is obligatory is the saying of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam enjoined zakat al-fitr, a sa' of date or a sa' of barley for every Muslim, slave or free, male or female, young or old. And he enjoined that it be given before the people go out to the prayer. The time for the payment, the best time for paying zakat al-fitr is on the day of Eid, after sunrise and before the Eid prayer. It is permissible to pay it 1 or 2 days before Eid, as some of the companions radiallahu anhum had done so. It is not permissible to delay paying it until after the Eid prayer because of the above mentioned hadith of Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, and he enjoined that it be given before the people to get out to prayer. Tayyib. And in the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, whoever gives it before the prayer, it is accepted zakat, and whoever gives it after the prayer, it is ordinary charity. Very, very, very important. Zakat al-Fitr in Ramadan. In Australia, usually we don't collect the sa', okay, which is, we're going to get to it in approximately 2 kilos. We don't collect a sa' of date or a sa' of rice or a sa' of wheat, etc., and distribute it to the weak. We don't do that. Most places in Australia, what do they collect? They'll collect money. Zakat al-Fitr, there's a little bit of difference of opinion. The majority of the ulama say needs to be given in that the staple, the main thing that the people of that country eat. Let's say you're in Indonesia, for example, they eat rice mainly. Okay, then in rice. If you live in a country where the staple, for example, is dates, then in dates. You're in a country where the staple is, for example, bread. They make wheat. You give them wheat and they make bread out of it. Okay, or flour, whatever it may be. And the staple of that country's food, that is what you're going to give zakat in. Because we don't have that easily accessible here in Australia, what the majority of places do, masajid and charities, etc., they'll collect the amount that would cost. They would collect the amount that it would cost. So let's say it's $10. A sa' of wheat, that 2 kilos approximately of wheat would cost, for example, $10. Khalas, you pay $10 for each person that you're responsible for. You, your wife and 4 kids, times 10, that is $60. So you give $60. What will they do? They'll send it overseas, and overseas they will buy those things and they will give. Obviously, if here in Australia it costs $10, let's say overseas it costs, for example, in $3, $4, or $5. What most places will do is they'll take that $3, $4, $5 and they'll add with the rest of zakat al-fitr, the other $5 that's remaining for each person. They'll add other things, okay, or they'll increase the amount of the rice or the wheat or the date that they buy, and they'll give that to the poor people. Okay, they don't just take and put it in their pocket. They increase and they give it to the poor people. Most places, especially now they're becoming a lot more strict with it, they tell you, we are going to stop collecting maybe 2-3 days before Eid. Okay, this is very important. We're going to stop collecting 2-3 days before Eid. And sometimes, wallah, I was very upset. Sometimes you go to Eid Salah, and they've got like zakat al-fitr boxes. What do you mean you have a zakat al-fitr box in Eid? The person puts $10. Where's his zakat al-fitr going to? Where's he going to? You understand it overseas, mumtaz. But how are the people going to get it before the Eid Salah? They're not going to get it now. The only way that works, and it's very rare, you've got people already in a country where they're going to pray, for example, Salat al-Eid 12 hours later. Let's say they're going to pray 12 hours later, you're going to collect the money add up how much it was, call them overseas, and they've already got like stock ready. Okay, we need now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need, for example, divided by 10, we need another 200 packs. But that's very rare. It doesn't happen. Okay, maybe there are exceptions, but most places they don't do it like that. Okay, so be very careful with your zakat al-fitr, and make sure if a masjid or an organization, charity that you trust, and you want to donate to them, give before the time. Give before the time. Here, when it says they used to give on the day of Eid, they used to give it themselves in person. Or 1 or 2 days before, they used to give it themselves in person. Now you're relying on someone else to distribute on your behalf. Again, no problem, but get it to them early. Even sometimes with transferring. Sometimes your transfer might not go straight away. It may take 1 or 2 days to clear. Again, be careful. Send it early, you can send it earlier. Okay, then you're doing tawqeel. You're you're giving someone that responsibility. So you're putting that person, they're going to distribute it in the right time, inshallah. Okay? Even if you send it sometimes a week earlier, no issue. Just make sure the reference is there, or in the right donation box, and they'll give it on your behalf properly, inshallah. The zakat al-fitr was made obligatory in the 2nd year after the hijrah. The amount of zakat, the asa' on behalf of each person, and this is equivalent to 2 kilograms and 40 grams approximately of wheat. And it should be of the people's staple food, such as rice or dates. The evidence for this is the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, may Allah be pleased with him. He said, at the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we used to give on the day of Eid al-Fitr a sa' of food stuff, yani a staple. And Abu Sa'id radiallahu anhu said, our staple food was barley, raisins, dried yogurt, and dates. It is not acceptable to give the money value instead of food as zakat al-fitr, as we mentioned, according to the majority of scholars. When you give that zakat al-fitr, they take it and they buy the goods. They take it and they buy the goods, and then they distribute it on your behalf. Okay? You can't say here he's $10, $15, $20, whatever it may be. You can't do that. Ways to distribute zakat al-fitr. Zakat al-fitr is to be distributed to the 8 types of people who are entitled to zakat, because zakat al-fitr is included in the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As-sadaqat, here meaning the zakat, are only for the fuqara and the rest of the ayah. In the other 8 categories of zakat. It is permissible to give one person's zakat al-fitr to more than one person, or that it is distributed in more than one avenue. It is also permissible to give several people's zakat al-fitr to one person, and to give it to a representative of an entitled person. Any questions about zakat al-fitr, Shawad? You still have energy, mashallah? We can finish today if you like. We'll finish?
So it's permissible to pay more than the minimum?
Yeah. It's always permissible to pay more than the minimum. And this goes sadaqat on your behalf. Like let's say it's $10 per person, and you got, for example, 7 people that you're looking after. And so you say, I just give $100.
And always be safe, on the safer side, so give it earlier.
Yeah, of course, yeah. As long as you make sure you either reference it in if you're transferring, or you put it in the zakat al-fitr box.
Regarding timing of zakat, not zakat al-fitr, zakat in general, you said you have to be strict with timing. If you are handing it to someone to pay on your behalf, when is it considered?
So when you give it to that person to give on your behalf, that's you fulfill the obligation. So let's say a person wants to give to a charity. This is a good point. Let's say a person wants to give to a charity, and the 1st of Ramadan, that's when it's due. 1st of Ramadan comes, he gave it to that charity. That's ikhraj zakat. You've done the obligation by giving it to those people, who have to distribute it on your behalf. That's fine.
Does this also apply to money transfer? When you do that transfer, make the transfer overseas?
Yeah, no issue, inshallah. Yeah. That you've given your zakat, and now you send it to someone to distribute on your behalf, no issue, inshallah. Even if they delay a little bit in the process, that's not a problem. As long as you have given your zakat, you fulfill the obligation.
How old do you have to be when you have to start giving zakat?
How old do you have to be to start giving zakat? The good thing about zakat is you can do it when you're a baby, brother. If the money is there, you got to pay. So if your parents, for example, have put money aside for you, and it's above the amount, you need to start paying zakat.
How do you know when it's above the amount?
Minimum $670. If you've had $670 or more for one whole year, you need to pay zakat.
Chef, one more question.
Not on that yet.
No.
Okay.
You know how with the zakat you can pay for someone else, but you have to let them know.
Yeah.
Can the same be applied to fitra as well?
Yeah, same apply for
Do
the
they have to know that you're paying
yeah,
for them?
because it's an obligation.
So,
Okay. With regards to that question that he asked about, you need to be aware that you are paying the zakat, yeah. But if you have a sickness, like of a relative who has a dementia, but you got 100 grand in their account, how do you pay?
No, if again, this is an exception because he doesn't understand in the first place.
Yeah.
So as his guard, as long as his guardian, yeah, as long as the guardian has fulfilled the obligation, khalas, not issue. Because he doesn't understand like a kid, they don't understand. We're talking about someone who the zakat is an obligation upon him, and he has to give it himself. He has to give it himself. Now that's in a case where he doesn't have to give it himself, because that obligation is removed. Someone has to give it on behalf of him, and from his own wealth. Yeah.
When you say that you don't have to tell the person you are giving zakat that this is not zakat, do you have a certain circumstance to tell them that this is zakat? When you are giving them money, do you have to?
And is there a certain time? Not that I know of. Allahu Alam, not that I know of. Because once it's their money, they can do whatever they want with it. Once it's their money, they can do whatever they want with it. So that's why you don't have to tell them Allahu Alam.
Because you said that if it was your
Relative,
you
yeah.
don't have to.
Correct.
So I thought, so when do you have to?
You'd never have to, Wallahu Alam. From what I know, you never have to tell them that it's zakat because once it's their wealth, they can do whatever they want with it. So that's why you don't have to tell them. Khalas, it's a present or it's a gift or without even saying anything, whatever it may be. Putting it in their mailbox, putting it in the blue cougar. Yeah. The keys will be whenever a person, however a person gives, because it's their wealth, khalas, you don't have to tell them Wallahu Alam. Say, ooh.
Zakat, is it just restricted to local, or you can give overseas?
We said that already.
No. What I mean is that intention to give overseas as well. Can you pay both?
Oh, we said here, give both.
If someone's a traveller, and let's say, for example, their place of residence, their actual place of residence, for example, here, and let's say I'm traveling, I'm in China, for example. You know how you said you have to give it to the.
You didn't say have to.
You don't have. Yani, it's what's recommended. It's to give it to the area you're in, or the area you're from. Does that count as a
Like
place you're in?
residency, where you're a resident.
So
not where
you
you're
give it back
traveling
here,
to.
not
Yeah.
over there.
Right, let's quickly go through voluntary charity. Again, this is all general, and it's not no big issue, inshallah. Who wants to read?
I have a book.
No one wants to read? Jazakumullah khairan, barakallahu feekum. If I don't have my voice for Jum'ah, we'll see who I make dua against. Voluntary charity. The ruling giving voluntary charity is encouraged at all times, especially at the time of need. It has been encouraged in the Book of Allah, the Exalted, and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is he that will lend to Allah a goodly loan, so that he may multiply it to him many times. And who is the one that will give Allah a goodly loan, and he gives sadaqah. Who's the one that will give sadaqah, and obviously you're not giving it to Allah. And you give it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will return it to you multiplied. There's also the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever gives in charity the equivalent of a date earned from a good, yani halal source, for Allah does not accept anything but that which is good. Allah will take it in His right hand and tend it, yani look after it, and for its giver, as one of you tends his colt, yani young horse, until it becomes like a mountain. Yani Allah Azza wa Jalla takes that charity that you give and increases it, and obviously you see that reward inshallah on the day of judgment. In another hadith, indeed charity extinguishes the Lord's anger and it protects against the evil death. You're dying in a bad way. Dying in a bad way, yani, a bad death Islamically, not that a person doesn't die in a car crash or something. How a person dies in this dunya, it's open, doesn't mean anything. A person died in a car crash, generally speaking, doesn't mean anything. A good person can die yani, in a car crash, could get kicked by a camel like some of the companions of the Rambam did. Yani, you can die in any way, but that you die upon Islam. That you die upon Islam, this is what it means to die a good death. Giving charity to relatives. It is encouraged for a Muslim to be charitable towards those of his relatives who are needy and for whom he is not financially responsible, such as maternal and paternal uncles, as well as wife towards her husband if he is poor and others. A wife can give sadaqah and even, according to opinion, zakat to her husband. Why? Because she's not responsible for it. This is better than being charitable towards others, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, to an orphan need of kin. Yani an orphan, you look after an orphan, beautiful. Especially one that's related to you, close to you, excellent. Even better. It has been reported in the hadith also, charity given to a poor person is charity. But charity given to a relative is two things, charity and upholding the ties of kinship. Etiquettes of charity, there are many manners in giving charity, some of which are obligatory and others encouraged. The Muslim must be characterized by these manners. Some of the obligatory etiquettes are: 1. Sincerity towards Allah, the Exalted, such that one gives charity seeking by it the face of Allah and not seeking to show off or repute. This is very important. Obviously, whoever does an act and it's not sincere, that act is not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that person gave money, but all he did was lose money then. A person donated $1,000, people can say, mashallah, he was generous. What did he get out of it? People said he was generous, Allah, finished. Okay, so whenever you give sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 2, avoiding reminding people of one's generosity or injuring them. Yani hurting them, abusing them, as Allah said. Are you who believe, do not render in vain your sadaqah. Yani don't make them fruitless, don't make yourself lose all the rewards. How does a person lose his rewards when he gives in sadaqah? By reminders of your generosity or by injury. Yani someone gave someone sadaqah and he says, Habib, don't you remember I gave you sadaqah? Don't you remember I gave you sadaqah? Or he used it to abuse the person. Now, Habibi, yani, I hope this person, I look after this person, and that person can look after his own family, etc. This is bil-manni wal-adha, this is a person harming and reminding people of their favors. They should never be like that. Khalas, you gave them sadaqah, really you are the one that benefited. And one thing with sadaqah, two things a person should always remember. Now, number 1, that thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're in a position to be the hand that gives and you're not in a position where you have to be the hand that takes. Now thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. Number 2, ultimately thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have the greater benefit from it. And let's say you gave someone $1,000 in sadaqah. Okay, that $1,000, how long is it going to last them? By the time he pays his rent, $600-700 a week, if not more than that, and puts petrol, another $150 in his car, and buys one Happy Meal, khalas, that $1,000 is gone. But for you, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you? A minimum, if you gave $1,000 and it was accepted, a minimum Allah gives you $10,000 in hasanat, worth of hasanat. A minimum. Not only that, it lasts until the day of judgment where you're going to get it back in that which is better, in the Jannah. And in this dunya, Allah blesses your wealth, that because you gave any wealth from it, Allah blesses the rest of your wealth. Ultimately, who's the one that benefited? You as an individual. Now, so a person should never ever see that, wallah, I've got a hand over someone because I helped them. Never do that. And you put yourself in his position. It's embarrassing to take. It's not nice. A person doesn't want to. If a person's in a position where he's taking, it's not a nice position to be in. So I thank Allah that you're in that position and remember that you're the ultimate one that benefits. Some of the encouraged etiquettes are: 1, selecting from one's wealth that which is the best and the most beloved to them. Allah says, by no means shall you attain bir, al-bir. Al-bir here has 2 explanations. Both of them are correct. One is al-jannah. Lan tanalu al-birra. None of you will achieve jannah. Another one is the high levels of piety, high levels of goodness. Unless you spend in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that which you love. That which you love. So if a person has an ability to give, then, and you want to get those higher levels, that's why this is now recommended things. Then give from that which you love. Number 2, secretly giving charity, as this is the furthest from riyah, showing off and seeking repute. And it is better for treating the poor person with dignity. The exception to this is when there is a benefit from open giving charity, such as others follow his example in spending. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, if you disclose your sadaqah, it is well, but if you conceal it and give it to the poor, then that is better for you. At times, it is better to give secretly, and at times it's better to give openly. For example, you want to help out your uncle. Okay, your uncle needs help, or your cousin, or your brother. And not everyone needs to know about it. It's just between you and him. You don't say on the family group, Assalamu alaikum Amma, did you get the $1,000 I sent you in sadaqah? Why are you openly showing that? What's the point of that? Now, you give secretly with no one knowing. But let's say you were doing a fundraising dinner. Okay, you're doing a fundraising dinner. And a person wants to donate secretly. Why do you donate secretly? Donate openly. Why? Because you donating, you want to encourage others to also give. Now, $500 is offer. Don't worry, I won't scare you. No issue, inshallah. Number 3, giving charity generously at times of need and in blessed times such as the month of Ramadan, and that's better. Now, to give when people in times of need or in blessed times like the month of Ramadan, this is better and more rewarding. Number 4, giving the charity out of goodness of one's heart, because you want to. Number 5, varying the charity according to the needs of the poor, since charity is not limited to giving money to the poor. What are the different things that people need? Okay, and this is something also very important, and I highly encourage for those that have maybe some relatives where you know that they're doing it tough. Now, help them in what they need. For example, like we've mentioned before about like holiday programs. Not everyone can afford to put their kids on holiday programs. If you know your cousin, your niece, your nephew, whatever it may be, wants to go or needs to go, and you can afford to take them, don't wait for their parents to come beg you, Allah Khalik, can you lend me $1,000 so I can put my kids, or $500 so I can put my kids in the holiday program? You do it. You enroll them yourself and say, you're with me this month. I'm going to enroll you to all the programs at the thing, and that's a gift from me, whatever it is. Or let's say on Eid, okay, you want to give the kids, and you know their parents are doing it a bit tough. Sometimes beforehand, give, for example, the kids maybe like money and say this is an early Eid present, so maybe that the parents can get more things for the kids earlier, or maybe you give the parents, even secretly, put it in their mailbox without anyone knowing, or slide it under their door, whatever it is. Don't slide it under the door, people are going to freak out. Nowadays they'll freak out. Before it was alright, now they'll probably freak out. This is like, now, but do what you can. Do what you can to assist the people without them needing to beg you. Without them needing to beg you. Sometimes it's like little things that people do. Well, they can be a big help for others, and you got to be smart. You got to be smart. Okay, people don't want to feel like, wallah, I need to take a handout from someone. But at the same time, if you have the ability to look after someone, especially those that are close, like your relatives, do so. Even your parents. Wallah, I say this is very, very, very important. Look after your parents. Wallah, there's a lot of parents that do it very tough. Allahumma barik, their sons are living it up. Their sons are living it up, and sometimes their parents don't have $100 spare. Don't ever be like that kind of person. Okay? There's a lot of people that don't have, maybe they're living week to week, okay, alhamdulillah, but mashallah, Allah fatih alayk, mashallah, you're malyan. Okay? And your family members, your relatives, they need a little bit, don't wait for them to beg you to give, you give beforehand. With that, alhamdulillah, we've completed the booklet on zakat and sadaqah. Obviously, again, the bigger the fiqh book you open, the more masail, the more matters are going to be mentioned in it. Inshallah, I do hope, wallah, we get to a point where we can go for some bigger books of fiqh and we can benefit and be proper students of knowledge, inshallah. May Allah Azza wa bless us in what we learn and allow us to act upon it sincerely and see it on the day of judgment. هذا والله أعلم. صلى الله محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Any questions, Shabab? Any questions about anything that we mentioned?
Can you give sadaqah? Can you give sadaqah to a kafir, unbeliever?
Sadaqah? General sadaqah, yeah. General sadaqah is flexible. Kafir, Muslim, old, young, relative, no relative, whoever you want.
So when does like someone no longer become your responsibility as a parent for you to give sadaqah on their behalf?
What do you mean when they for like the zakat and fitr and stuff?
Yeah. So for like so not sadaqah.
If they have the means of supporting themselves, then they should be giving it themselves. But it's allowed for the dad to just give for everyone, or even the mum, whoever, to give for everyone, or the son give for everyone.
So if the parents put like X amount of money each week in their child's bank account for, let's just say, however many years, do they take out of that money to pay zakat on that person's behalf, or?
If they want to, or they can pay from themselves.
How do you know when to pay? Like, I know you asked, but like, how do you know when to pay the zakat when you have like, what time of the year?
Farouk, Allah barik, I don't know how much money you have, brother. But for the zakat questions that you're asking, I reckon Allah barik, you're ready to get married. Ain't got a hajj, Allah barik.
Shafi went to business for someone.
That's right, you got the lawn mowing business, tabarakallah.
Yeah, I paused that.
You paused it? His zakat was getting too much. You just to make it easy for yourself, just set one day. So for example, like let's say Ramadan, first night of Ramadan, khalas. As soon as Ramadan comes, you give. That's just the way to make your life easy. Or for example, the 21st night, so in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Just choose that one day, give you zakat and make it nice and easy for him, inshallah. And you don't mind the shit, alhamdulillah. He needs zakat. تفضل حبيبي تفضل.
If you give zakat the last 10 days, do you get more ajr than
Inshallah, yeah.
standard?
Inshallah, but as long as the obligation is fulfilled. Just like other obligations, like praying your fard prayers, it's more rewarded. You do, inshallah, get more rewarded, but as long as it's due at that time. A person can't delay on purpose.
So if someone gave zakat like one day, the next year, can they like leave it a few more days? So like, let's say they gave it just before Ramadan, and now they say they want to, let's say 4 days before Ramadan. The next year, can they delay it that 4 days to say so they can change the date, or is it once you've given it, you have to give it?
You have to give it on that day, unless your date changes. So unless, for example, you went under the amount.
Oh, okay.
Let's say, for example, a person, his car broke down, so he needed to borrow money. So he went below the nisab. And then he works his way and he gets back now above the nisab. So now his year starts again. Remember the minimum amount?
Yeah.
So let's say 670. He had to borrow money, so he went $2,000 in debt. So now he doesn't have to pay zakat. He worked his way up, worked his way up, worked his way up. Now he's got 670 again. So his year will start again. So whenever that year started, his year will start again. So the year after that, he has to pay zakat. Any other questions, Shabab? Any general questions?
Regarding the obligatory prayers, and say like you're coming up really close to say Maghreb or Asr, and you have one final thing you need to do for work, and say you have to travel at least like 50 k's, or like 50,000 k's or however.
50,000
Sorry.
You know where you're going to end up?
50 k's.
It's been a long day out.
You have to travel 50 k's, and like the clock ticks over, and you have no way of doing wudu, but you want to say make wudu with water, so you make your way back, and then you make wudu, and then you pray as soon as you can, like, as soon as you have access to water.
So here, I'll broaden the question. If a person prays outside of the time because he was trying to fulfill one of the conditions of the prayer, that's fine. But he shouldn't do that on purpose. Okay, so the question is, let's say you've only got, for example, 10 minutes left for salah. Like you're in a place, let's say you're far away and you don't have water. So if a person goes looking for the water, even if Asr time comes in, it's fine. Because you're doing something to fulfill one of the conditions of the prayer. On condition that you didn't do it on purpose. Meaning if you knew Dhuhr is from 12 to 3, you can't delay Asr until the end of time, say, I don't have water, I need to look for water. Now you should make sure that you fulfill it beforehand. But in the case you forgot, you slept, whatever it may be, and you need to wake up and now do it, or go find it, then yes, you're allowed to delay your prayer until you get what you need, the water that you need. This is very common if a person has, for example, a wet dream. Let's say a person, like Fajr, finishes at 6 o'clock, for example, and he woke up at 5:50 and he needs to pray Fajr. So he needs to do ghusl first. Let's say his ghusl, waking up, doing ghusl, it's going to take him out after 6 o'clock. That's fine. Why? Because he was doing something necessary to fulfill the conditions of prayer in the first place.
And that one with the praying. If there's praying, 10 minutes left, if there's no water, can't you just do tayammum?
No, because there is water, you just don't have it. You need to get it.
So if you're like in the middle of a desert,
there,
if you're in the middle of a desert,
if you can't find water or you can't use water, that's when you can do tayammum.
so if you're like, let's say in the middle of that outback, you literally no water, you don't have any water.
From Dhuhr, you got, for example, from Dhuhr to Asr, you're not going to have water, you need to go searching for the water. You need to go searching for the water, of course. To the best of your ability, as long as it's safe. You can't just say, "Khalas, I don't have water right now, I'm not going to do it."
Sheikh, is it permissible to pray two prayers at the same time? And what conditions can you do that in?
It is permissible to pray to join the intentions, as long as the intentions are not mutually exclusive. This requires a little bit of knowledge in fiqh to know what what is intended for itself. So that's what they'll call it. That which is intended for itself. For example, let's say the sunnah for dhuhr is 4 rak'at, 2 and 2 before dhuhr. Yeah? Can a person say, I'm going to pray 2 rak'at and then intend both sunnahs? You can't. Why? Because it's intended to be 4 rak'at,
Yeah.
2 and 2. But let's say Tahiyyat al-Masjid. You walk in and you want to pray the sunnah for dhuhr and Tahiyyat al-Masjid, the greeting of the masjid. Can you join them both? Yes, you can. Why? Because the intention, what's wanted from Tahiyyat al-Masjid is not that it has to be its own 2 prayers, but that you pray any 2 prayers. That you pray any 2 rak'at, sorry, any 2 units. So now you can join it with the sunnah for dhuhr. Let's say you want to add on to that. Let's say you heard the adhan. So now you want to pray the 2 sunnah after hearing the adhan. Is that intended by itself, or it can be joined with something else? It can be joined with something else. Let's say you just made wudu. Is it intended to be by itself, or you can join it? You can join it. Let's say istikhara. You want to pray istikhara. You can pray istikhara. So that's like a person who, mashallah, has a bit of knowledge. He can get a lot of hasanat. A lot of hasanat. And he can pray for, let's just say the 2 rakats before Salat al-Dhuhr. He can intend, if he made wudu, the 2 rakat after wudu. He heard the adhan, the 2 rakat after the adhan. He wanted to do istikhara, the 2 rakat of istikhara. He wanted to pray Tahiyyat al-Masjid, 2 rakat of Tahiyyat al-Masjid, and the sunnah for dhuhr. All of it, 5 prayers in 2 rakat.
So you can put them all into a package though.
Yeah, for free.
This guy's such a 2 rak'ah.
All of them in 2 rakat.
That's awesome.
Any other questions, Shabab?
If a bet's beneficial, like
If a bet's beneficial, here we go.
like for example,
This is
like
a Tommy question from 2021.
put money towards like sadaqah, like or like push-ups or something. Or someone's gonna, is that haram still?
You can do a one-way bet, you can't do a normal bet. Even if it's for a good cause, wallah. One-way bet, you know what one-way bet is?
Yeah, like no matter what the outcome is, you go through with it.
No. That's a
You
sunnah.
know the outcome. So
No. One-way bet. Yani, for example, it's more of a prize.
He's not losing it.
So there's 2 guys, and one of them says, for example, I'll give you $100 if you make that shot, for example. And he gets that free pointer in, and you give him $100.
Oh, you
But if he
don't
loses, he doesn't lose anything. If he misses, nothing happens. There's no consequence if he loses. That's more like a prize.
When praying non-obligatory prayers, you don't need to face the Qibla.
When you're praying what?
Non-obligatory prayers.
No, you always need to face the Qibla. The only exception is if a person's on like a vehicle, like a riding animal or something, and even then, the ulama say, there's a difference of opinion, but it's best to face the Qibla when you start, and then wherever your animal takes you after that, you can go. But that's only when you're like traveling and on a riding animal or vehicle. But if you're stationary, like, you have to face the Qibla.
Could raising good children be classed as sadaqah jariyah?
Yeah, of course. One of the things that continue after your death is a righteous child that makes dua for you. And if you've taught them, if you've taught them the knowledge which is that is benefited from, if you've taught them or you've been the means for them to learn, then they're going to get that ajr after you, inshallah.